Well, hey guys, welcome back to another episode. We are still quarantined and we're Zoom casting as usual. So I hope you guys are doing well. Ken, you doing all right?
Doing great.
Good, good.
Super
Brad,
happy to be in my home office.
cozy.
There's a little sarcasm, but it's actually true. Yeah.
Good, good. Well, we've got a special guest. There's a fourth person to the to the matrix here, and evening it out. We're no longer a trinity. So Dan Cobb is joining us all the way from Michigan, and I'm going to let Brad do the honors of introducing him because you guys are longtime friends. So I'm going to turn this over to Brad.
Yeah. We got Dan Cobb on the show today. Dan and I have known each other for many, many moons, over 20 years. We're friends, we're colleagues. I actually worked for his agency for just over 6 years. What a fabulous experience in my life. But Dan's a 28-year-old veteran in this industry, and he's an author. He's got a list of accomplishments that I couldn't even list. They're so long, and it's just always been a great friend of mine, and at times a mentor. And so welcome, Dan.
Thanks for the introduction, Brad. And it's right back at you. You're an incredible creative talent, a good friend. So.
No, thanks. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on the show. I know, I thought, man, if we're bringing in all these different agency owners and founders from around the country, who better but to bring on Dan Cobb from the Detroit area. I'm from Detroit. We're from Detroit. I still have a lot of Detroit in my blood. I say sometimes I'm so dangerous, I vacation in Detroit. I like that shirt that says Detroit versus everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't drive in Detroit because they're maniacs, that's for sure. But anyways, I thought, hey, let's bring on Dan Cobb. He's got a lot to share. Dan, I know you're an author and you recently wrote a book. I'd like to discuss a little bit about that as well. The book is called Surfing the Black Wave. It's a very intriguing title. And tell us a little bit about yourself, Dan.
Show us that book.
Oh yeah, here it is. It's a very intriguing title. When I first saw it, I'm like, man, there's a lot of curiosity in that. I gotta pick that thing up. Very proud of you, by the way, because I know how tough it is. And Bob, you're an author as well. I know how tough it is to actually get something like this published. It is not thin, obviously, but it's full of very, very rich information. And,
yeah, my books aren't that thick, so I'm anxious to hear the wisdom.
I use thick paper and lots of photos.
Right.
Yeah.
Lots of illustrations. That's how we get it done.
Tell us a little bit about your business, your agency, and what type of clients you have, what type of work you do.
Right. Well, we've been we started out with two types of clients. We started in healthcare and pizza. First two clients, Henry Ford Health System and Domino's Pizza. And to this day, we're still with healthcare and pizza and lots of other fast food places. So we see this combination. It's kind of a call to action return generation of business, one feeding the other, obviously. So currently we're with Papa John's and University of Michigan and a lot of other types of organizations like that. But our experience is really in taking chain-based organizations, local organizations that are widespread, and building that local connection and to the local community for those organizations. For example, with a Chick-fil-A, their brand is very much a local brand. And when we work with them, it's not about the national TV commercial. It's about that local engagement for the daddy-daughter date nights and the military appreciation nights and showing up with chicken at the local cause-related organizations. So that's the type of organization we work with really well. And in doing that over the years, what we've learned is that connection happens in community. Connection happens through values. What we find is that people are interested in your promotions. That's great to have a pizza on sale, a $5 hot and ready, but you can beat that with a $7 pizza that cares. We did a pizza campaign for Hungry Howie's and brought our healthcare and pizza together somehow with a pink pizza box. A percentage of the proceeds would go to breast cancer. And during that campaign, gained 250,000 Facebook fans and followers, and it became an incredible viral effect. There was a 23% increase in sales during October, and And so we saw how that local connectivity is about connecting to the values that people care about there, and then bringing that together for maybe you have a promotion, maybe not. It's more important that you have that values connection.
Good. You know what? When I first started working with you, Dan, one of the things that really stood out to me that was different than other agencies and other leaders in agencies is that you had a really defined vision. And the vision wasn't about advertising. It was about way more than that. In fact, I remember one time I was pretty stressed out about something, which is normal for me. And I remember you saying something to me. You said, "Brad, it's just advertising. It's just advertising. Like don't stress out about it. There's more than just advertising. We're not doing advertising. This is a facade. This is a facade of what we're doing. Our product now is advertising, but it's not our core ethos. It's not what we're about." And so, I'd like to hear a little bit about, and I thought that was really unique and different. And it was something like, I need to work with this guy. I need to work with Dan because that's something that is more important to me. We, as business owners, we're always asking the why of our business. And if you work in this industry long enough, it will literally burn you out. And you have to have more value than just that you want to create good stuff. Like, that's great. Or you want to help businesses that are doing good, or you want, that's great too. But I think as the core ethos, you have to know your why. And I'd be curious to hear from you, what that is, what that looks like right now in your life.
Well, I know even back in the day, Brad, you and I connected on our why. It was very much about that passion. You're given this talent. Many of us started with writing or artistic or musical skills, and it kind of drove us into this industry, which gave us a way to compensate those skills, if you're to kind of be realistic and honest about it. And for me, it went back to when I was a kid. I was sitting on a couch watching TV, as every teenage punk does. Their mom walks in the room and says, "Turn that off. That's bad for you. Go out and do something good for you." And it was that moment that kind of drove me. I've always wanted to be in advertising. It started back then when I was a kid. And it was this thought, why does it have to be bad for me? Why does this content, this entertainment, this advertising have to be bad for me? Why can't it be good for me? And maybe I can make that change. I started watching Nike, and Nike did the Just Do It campaign and started inspiring people. And I was a runner, so I went out and ran. I remember thinking, that commercial actually inspired me to be a better runner, to be a better person, to overcome the pain in my life and just take on the challenges. Why can't advertising always do that type of thing? And so I saw Apple do think different and think creatively and expand your thoughts. So we started building a model around that when we founded the agency. The model and the foundation of it, we call it Better Brands for a Better Human Condition. So we put everything we do through that filter. Is what we're doing a better brand for a better human condition? What's interesting is we started with that slogan. We postered it everywhere. We started saying it. If you ask anybody in my agency, they'll repeat the slogan. But then what happened was we were doing all-nighters. We were doing pretty much the slave shift. We've all done it in this business. And one of my staff members said, how is this a better brand for a better human condition? The fact that we can't see our families, the fact that we can't really make
that was challenged.
How is that even right? Because we're doing all these great things to help hospitals, and we're growing hospitals by what's billions of dollars and creating new sources of solutions for the patients. And pizza sales are great for the franchisees. You're growing their business and you're supporting those families, but we're sacrificing our families for the sake of theirs. How does that work? And so we started changing even our own agency model, started saying, what do we have to do to make this a better experience? Advertising is terrible on employees. I cannot take one more day standing in front of a staff saying, we lost an account. We're going to be cutting this number of staff today. Welcome to the party. This is advertising. If you haven't been around, this is the way it works. So we've been changing not only the way we engage our clients to build that better brand, but how do we change ourselves? How do we become better agencies and treat our people better?
That's so good. I mean, it really resonates with a lot of what we talk about. And I'm not from the advertising world originally. And I always thought it was really interesting when you look at the agency culture and marketing agencies and just going way back. It's like it's sort of like a churn and burn, like real, type of culture a lot of times, and on both sides, like on the client side and on the agency side. And I remember like, being at like some of these industry things and whatever they may be, and overhearing the work weeks that people have, and it's just like, 80-hour worked weeks, like anytime a client's upset, you're doing anything possible at any given moment. It's, how high should I jump? Okay, I'll jump that high, giving up family. And then also, client comes, you hire a bunch of people, client leaves, you fire a bunch of people. It's like this really odd kind of, it's very toxic in a way. It seems to be getting better, but similar to what you were saying, I just think it resonates with me, and it's what we talk about a lot. We focused on how do we create a business that is different, and the purpose is really not the product that we put out, it's the message that we kind of stand for. And how do we even practically remove all those things, like have a really great culture, work-life balance, be working towards something that matters, from the standpoint of our business message that then influences how we work with our clients and the work that we do through them. And how do we do things like, create a staff environment that's not continually expanding and contracting, like literal financial stability, brick on brick, that is not necessarily dependent on any one particular client. That's harder and it's different, but
it's we hear about flattening the curve right now. It's that we've been flattening the curve our entire careers. That's what we do. The curve comes in. We get so much work. We don't see our families for a month. And then we finally resolve it, and we did a terrible job in all the work because we weren't really very prepared for it, and we didn't do a good job, extending what we had. So we now have been thinking through how do we flatten that curve so that through the course of the year it's fairly level, so that you have a few peaks, but it's not all spikes and then drop-offs. And managing that is really about managing a client. It's about getting them on a course and managing their calendar, building out long-term plans, 2-3 year plans, staying with clients for long-term, looking for the kinds of clients who are long-term, who marry, who don't date around. The clients that date around, they're just using agencies till they're burned out. Those they're toxic. They're just going to destroy your people and take them down with themselves because they can't track their own brand. They don't even know where they're going. Mm-hmm. And really, we all feel the pain of the way they're inflicting, the way they're running their businesses.
We talk about this a lot of, are our business just a commodity, or do we have a value that is unique enough that we're not on that list of customers that are going to go and burn out agencies, right? Just looking for the next commodity business to burn out. We talk a lot about that, and in our business it struggles because some of our offerings are commodities and others are not in our business, and so trying to properly plan our business and trying to even 3 or 4 years from now understand where our industry is going to go. In this, everything time-wise now, everything has been compressed to the point where you have to pivot so much now and so often with technology, and things are just moving at such a fast pace. How do you keep up in this business? And is keeping up worth it? Like, sometimes I want to go and just, go make widgets somewhere on some assembly line. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, I know I wouldn't be fulfilled by it, but I'm like, just for a couple of days, just for a break. Because I'm like, I don't know if this industry is broken or if I'm broken. And I feel like I'm broken. I don't think the industry is broken. I feel like I'm broken sometimes.
I think it's a good that's a great segue, Brad, into one of the principles in your book that you talk about is kind of this third, the waves come in three, that principle. Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe contextualize it in the context of what's going on right now? Because I do see some interesting developments. I was talking to someone this morning on the phone about something, and I'm starting to see, Brad and I and Ken, we talk, and I've talked about it for years, and Brad talks about it. This whole idea of everything becomes commoditized, right? If it's a new technology, a new knowledge base, people start to learn it, more people start to learn it, and then it becomes a commodity, right? So what was digital marketing 15 years ago is now, you can go to Fiverr and pay $5 for someone to do it, So, right. But there's a shift that's happened in times like these where everyone is now focused on quick results, expertise, the bottom dollar, return on investment. I notice now I'm starting to get requests, and I see and I read requirements, and I hear things of, oh, maybe we need a high-level specialist in Facebook ads. Maybe we need to go find a conversion rate optimization specialist, because there's that. It feels like the tide's going back out again. What do you think about that, and what are you seeing in context of what you write about in that kind of tsunami black wave scenario or metaphor?
Right. I mean, if you think about just the title, Surfing the Black Wave, it seems a little bit prophetic. I can't claim prophet status, but I felt something coming, a shift coming in the way we do business, and wrote based on that tremor that kind of we all feel at times, that something's going to change, something's going to shift. And it comes from a place of being an inventor. And my grandfather was an inventor and taught me a lot about how inventors think. And the mindset in modern population is it's already been invented. There will be no new Amazon. E-commerce is over. Amazon won. Social media is over. Facebook won that battle. The next is really pretty much they're going to grow. We're going to watch them grow, and we'll all get smaller and less important. But there's going to be another shift, because inventors are optimists. They believe, no, that was just the symbol or the piece to the next thing. They're going to take those two ideas and build them together and build social media commerce. And next thing you know, a new thing is born. And so an inventor is constantly saying there's a new shift. The third wave model is this idea that in tsunamis, there was a tsunami that hit off the coast of Hawaii. And when the first wave came in, people saw it, and they kind of came up to the shore and saw fish flopping out in the water. And the fish flopping was a really mysterious fact, and they were wondering what was happening. Well, it turns out after the first wave, a second one came, and it was the third one where that fish flopping was actually the water rushing out for another big wave that came in. And a lot of lives were lost that day by people who were just spectators watching the wave that had taken place. I believe we're in the same place. We're all spectators watching social media, saying, well, that's over. That race has been won. Facebook won. Zuckerberg is the final say. And there's another shift coming, because there's a mindset shift that took place from the first two waves, e-commerce, social media. A mind shift came in that said it's no longer for the big three, the big five, whatever the number is in any particular industry, to control everything. Now there's a new mindset that comes in. In the past, it was this idea of three waves. The first wave was thousands of years of agricultural society. In comes the Industrial Revolution, the first great wave of society, changed the way we thought. Now anyone can get a product. We can get designer toilet brushes for cheap because they're being made in other countries, and we found manufacturing models so everyone can have stuff. The next wave was information. The information wave made everybody access to content. And Steve Jobs comes along and says, let's make this kind of computer technology that only the big companies have. Well, let's make it available for everyone. The third great wave is a mindset shift we call the participation age. The participation wave is the one where the people are all given the power. Now it's not just the three great broadcast networks, the three great corporations. Now it's the million great little companies, the us's, the smaller agencies that are rising up and building their own platforms, their own TV channels, their own broadcast, this broadcast right here. 20 years ago, it would have been unthinkable for this little group to have their own TV show. Here we have our own TV show. This is the participation age. We have a voice in culture. So the new influence, the new manufactured availability is the access to power, the access to influence. Everyone has it now. Everyone wants to be a part of that. So it's not about me building up my empire anymore and having a bigger and bigger agency where Daniel Brian Advertising owns the world eventually. That model is going to break. All of them are breaking. It's better when Daniel Brian meets 3 other guys who have specific skill sets that I don't have, and we intertwine our relationships and build out towards something bigger to serve a bigger population. The participation age is about collaboration in smaller units of power, getting more access and creating a greater wave than any one big organization could ever create.
So what would you say to business owners or agency owners to prepare themselves, or to be aware, or what can they do now to position themselves for this next wave, this next thing?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One thing is doing what you're doing right now, is not being afraid to talk to your competitors, but welcoming the idea that you have skill sets that you could add to build up your ability to reach bigger audiences. That's the first thing. But the next thing is to have a mindset. My father was a salesman at IBM, and he taught me how to sell. And I don't want to admit I'm a salesman because that just sounds disgusting. But we're all salesmen, or we don't do good art, right?
Right.
It's what we do. We have to sell product. And he said, always take the sale. It doesn't matter if you know how to do it. Doesn't matter if you have the expertise. Take the sale. Then price yourself out of it rather than saying no. And so that's a different mindset than most people have. They say, well, let me see if this is the right fit. Is this what I do? If you always take the sale, but figure it out mindset, now you're not limiting to what you do, what you sell. Now you're opening your business model to many, many opportunities. And then your connection to your network empowers you to execute things you could never do by yourself. You can grow into a much bigger capability. For example, some of the different skill sets in e-commerce that you have in your group, I may need some e-commerce help. If I get an e-commerce client that's bigger than I can handle, well, I would want to say, yes, I can do it, and then quickly give you a call and say, help me pull this off. And you build a relationship to get it done.
I could not agree more with the collaboration thing, especially inside of the agency world. And so we were talking before this, and we were saying, hey, one of the reasons we created this podcast was agencies seem for so long, they're almost afraid to share information, and very, very competitive and secretive. Seems like even more than other industries. Maybe that's just my perspective, but there's a lot of facades that go on. It's partially because that's kind of what we do, right? We market things, and sometimes it's hard to know where that line is. But it's been interesting as I've gone, and I get opportunities to meet a lot of different agencies, especially in our space, and a lot of them would be considered competitors of ours. And as I get to meet a lot of these founders and people that run them, those kind of things, you start to realize that there's very few true competitors, right? Like on the surface, there might be a lot, but when it comes down to it, you're most likely better at something than I am, even though we say we do maybe the same thing, or maybe it's assumed that. And so then once you explore that and you say, hey, let's take down the competition thing, let's see what you're really good at, and is there a relationship here? Man, the collaboration is actually extremely powerful. And we often say collaboration over isolation. That's kind of that's sort of like our little phrase here. I think it's incredibly powerful. And I'd like to dig into something, if you can, explain. I'm sure there's a line for you, but there's a balance between saying you can do everything and being specialized, right? So maybe talk through that based on what you just said.
It's about vertical integration a lot of times. For example, if you're with a client, your best new business is your current business, your current clients. If you're with a client and they're looking to explore a new solution, or you have an idea to solve for them, don't explain to them how they can go and find a service. Simply say, I can figure this out for you. Let me figure out how to solve this problem, whether it's CRM or it's a digital initiative that you want to create an influencer engagement community or an event, things that maybe you haven't done before. Find ways to get vertical integration. We started this early because we were with some clients that had deep, deep pockets, but we had very, very tiny parts of their budget at Domino's, at Henry Ford Health System. We had a very, very small piece of it. And we started seeing things we could do, and we started taking on those challenges. And it grew us from a very niche organization to a very broad advisor to our clients, working with the C-suite. And we've now moved into consulting, where we now are at the C-suite level with the CEO, CMO, all the operation officers, solving the operational problems of the organization with marketing solutions. And when you're in that stage of the conversation, the dollars are bigger, the opportunity for change is greater, and the more aggressive willingness to change into some more innovative areas is there than you do when you're simply a brochure maker. A brochure maker is no longer, right? That's how I started. I was a brochure maker. If I'd have stuck with my core competency, I would have been dead years ago as a business. The core competency would have been my death. It was the ability to stand up and say, wait, my core competency is my threat. I need to be bigger than that. I need to think bigger.
I'll just a point of clarity for anyone listening to this. This is not, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're not saying, hey, do everything, but don't do it really, really well. You still have to get really good at what you're doing and then build on those bricks, right?
Right. Well, you don't want to, our model is and everyone's got their model. Some people say, I'm just a hammer, and I do hammer better than anybody can hammer. When you ask, which tool are you in the toolbox? I say, I'm the toolbox. That's what our agency model is. So that's our core. And part of that idea is that, we don't want to go to our client and say, yeah, we're going to fix that hole with a hammer. We think that's the way to fix the hole in your wall. Well, that's not the best way to fix the hole in their wall. There might be a better way to fix that. So we look at the problem, and we see ourselves as problem solvers and business growers, not as a particular tool and a particular skill set. Now, if we were working under some consultancy or under some strategic organization as that tool, that's fine. That is absolutely a permissible model. But as I think Jim Collins says, be careful of the tyranny of the core. The tyranny of the core says you must only do this because the business model says that, and it prevents you from innovation. And ultimately, in a world of change, you will not have a model out of that.
Right.
That's good. Speaking of that, you started your agency early, mid-90s when you guys were doing a lot of selling, reselling media, things like that. And, the old saying, I don't remember who said it, but today, as agencies, you have to not sell the media, but you actually have to create the media. And how have you guys done that in the context of kind of what we're talking about? Is you've lived the pivots, you've lived the evolutions, you've lived these things over 28, almost 30 years now as an agency. What are some of the lessons that agencies can learn right now who might be 5, 10, 12 years old, and they're freaking out right now? They're like, oh my gosh, we're dead if we lose one more client. What are some lessons that you've used over 30 years that you could offer to some agency owners right now?
I'd say owned media is our future. It is the black wave in the book. If you read it in the final chapters, when you get to the conclusion, I'm giving away the answer. And we do believe owned media is the future. And I'll tell you a couple of reasons why. People believed at one point that that your Facebook community was owned media, that you were building this platform, you would get your millions of followers, and you could speak to them for free. And at first that was true. You could build for Chick-fil-A, I think we built up to 8 million followers. They eventually stopped calling them followers at Facebook, and they changed the title of that group to likes. When they changed them to likes, what happened was they were no longer followers. They were no longer our community. They were Facebook's community. In fact, they never were owned by Chick-fil-A. They were always owned by Facebook. And so at one point, we would reach 130% of that 8 million followers for every post we put out. After they changed the name, after they started dwindling that result, and Facebook said, hey, we can charge you to talk to these followers, it moved down to 1%. 1% of the people who we posted to in that community would see the content we created. So the future is no longer about going into somebody else's media and trying to find your way. It's about creating your own platform, owning that platform, and getting more and more visibility there. Amazon has their own media. Amazon is a owned media platform for Amazon Prime. When they bring you into that environment, you're captured. You're buying product, you're watching content, you're part of the ecosystem. Apple TV, Apple content, that's an owned media platform. It's an owned media platform to get you to buy their stuff. So it's an ecosystem they're bringing you into that you can't get out of once you're bought in, once all your content is aligned within that platform. So more organizations are awakening to the idea of owned media platforms. And some people are saying, well, you can't do it. It's already been won. Amazon won. Apple won. That's the place I get where I say, wait, I just said that a few minutes ago. It's never over. Innovation says there's always another way to do this. We just need to take the concept of owned media and say, how does that apply to me? For healthcare, we created medical programming television shows. They were called The Minds of Medicine. We did full half-hour TV shows for hospitals and started putting that content in the marketplace. And we've got $1 million in procedures logged by the following morning after doing these shows. And so that became an owned media model where we would sell the advertising units to somebody else. We would sell it to the pharmaceuticals, to the insurance companies, and we would get our media time for free. So there's always a way to change the model and look at it. It's just changing the model and turning it on its ear. It turns out you can get a half-hour broadcast for the same cost as getting 8 minutes of commercials in that same space. So we would buy the half-hour broadcast for that price, sell the 8 minutes of commercials, and own the other remaining minutes for ourselves, free and clear. So that's how we pulled that off back in the day. That model ran its course. Now there's so many reality medical shows. It's really not, it's not news anymore. But at the time, it was a big deal in 1998 when we first started doing that.
Mm-hmm. And so for those agencies now that are kind of rethinking and have the time to say, okay, what are we going to do? What would be some real practical advice based on what you just said?
Marketing automation. I think building around your CRM platform. I would say Brad Ayers is one of the leaders in this particular category, and what he's done with universities is just incredible. He was on the cutting edge of how it was being done in universities in particular. But we're doing the same things with a lot of our clients. In healthcare, we're tying to the medical record of a patient. So you talk about data. We know everything about that patient, and now you're able to talk to that patient within certain HIPAA limitations. There's a certain compliance level you have to be careful with in healthcare. But when you look at an organization like a hospital, they have so much data on their whatever million patients that track with them. They're able to communicate to them by condition state, by lifestyle, by region, by media habits, you name it. And that's no media platform very much.
I love that.
What are some ways during this time of the COVID-19 that you've had to help your current customers pivot or to do things, to go digital when they weren't digital, to connect with their customers? You know, what we're talking about right now is all innovation, and we've all had quickly, like in the last 2 or 3 weeks, put a lot of innovation into ideas and thoughts of how to redo business a little bit. What are some things that you've done that you felt like you could share that could give inspiration? Or
one thing I would say is don't always look at it as a negative. For Papa John's, their sales are Super Bowl level numbers. Super Bowl is the big pizza sale day of the year. We're doing that every day right now because of the fact of delivery. Delivery took off during COVID-19, so that organization found a win. And so rather than just starting to gouge the customer, we tried to say, how do we endear our customer? How do we connect with them during this time? It turns out in New York, many of the children got their daily lunch at school, and when school was shut down, they weren't eating. So Papa John's decided to step in and start giving pizza away for these kids so they could have their lunch every day. By being incredibly profitable, this is an opportunity not to just gouge and make more profit, but to give back and to build a bigger relationship with that community. So now Papa John's in New York is outpacing all the other markets because of this, the things like this they've been doing, engaging their communities. The other thing you can do in healthcare in particular is think about the fact that we are facing right now they call it flatten the curve. You want to prevent the spike of people coming into that hospital quickly. We've now flattened that curve for the most part, but there's a second curve coming. The second curve coming is the mental health crisis.
Right.
The next crisis is the fact that people have lost their jobs. They've been rejected from transplant procedures. They've been put on hold from screenings. Their procedure has been postponed. There are going to be death after death counted by the next wave. The next wave is the result of the first. So these are the things we need to start thinking about as the mental health crisis that's about to happen. For every 1% of unemployment, we typically see about 10,000 deaths related to suicide and related to alcoholism and other associated conditions that are health related. So now is the time for us to engage our communities with messages of hope, future, finding ways for our health systems to engage people and say we have a model for getting virtual care because people are afraid to go into the hospital, so they're not getting their care. Give them virtual care, telehealth, market these new products, and give insurance programs that make no copay or half copay for doing the virtual programs that are cheaper, they're able to get you in quicker, that type of thing. So now it's about helping people get caught up with their healthcare needs and build encouragement like Nike did back in the day, saying, hey, you have hope, you have a future, it's going to be okay. We have hope in our future, and join us in that model.
That's good. That's good. What are you doing? What are you doing internally with your staff? Like, how are you messaging, and how are you personally staying up in all the chaos and distance? Though you're working from home, everyone's working from home pretty much, right? How are you able to be to lead in this kind of environment?
I've been following the stats and trying to be very, very informative with them of where I think things are at, telling them about their future a lot. About where we're going to be on the other side of this, how we're using this to leverage consulting on COVID marketing. We're doing a lot of COVID campaigns, so we've actually increased our business during this model. And what I'll do is every Monday we have a staff-wide chat, and we bring everybody on the Zoom like this, but I'll bring my phone out and I'll walk down by the beach or down the street, and I'll do a little bit of a kind of a outside of the office moment and just be human with them for a minute. We talk about things like, hey, this has had incredible impact on our ability to be with our families. And some of you are actually enjoying it. Don't feel guilty about that. Find some joy in the moment right now. Enjoy the time with your family. And maybe when we're done with this, we're going to extend your time with your families and find a way to continue to work virtually because this is really good for everyone. And where we've learned how to do it. So there's some wins that are happening in the middle of all these challenges.
Daniel, that's really good. I would love to dig into that a little bit, like on 2 points that you just mentioned, if you wouldn't mind elaborating. One is, how do you see this maybe changing how you guys do business? Like, will you continue doing some of that stuff? And the second one, particularly on, you said your business has increased because of the positioning and how you're doing it. I would love for you to expand on how has that increased? Like, why has that increased, and how have you positioned yourself to not be an opportunist in that place, but actually take this and say, how do we adjust what we're doing so we can actually increase our ability right now?
Right. I'd be cautious to say my business has increased. The first moment of the crisis, I got a phone call from a client that canceled a $500,000 contract.
Yeah, I'm sure. So tell us about that too.
It took us less than 24 hours to lose $1 million in contracts. So I would be careful to say that we increased our business. But we did immediately pick up a series of these commercials because we went out to our clients and said, you can't stay quiet right now. If you are not available for them, when the wave of business starts, with a pent-up demand for your business, for example, eyewear and a couple of our clients have a pent-up need. When that happens, they're going to go somewhere and they're going to start making their plans, and it'll happen before you even had a plan to react to it. So let's build that relationship now with them, and let's show them we care about them. So we had clients that went out and started helping with the hospitals and And so we started promoting that. We started helping them with their story. Everybody from the New York Mets, showing that they're in the community, giving back and helping out, to SVS Eyewear saying we're helping with the local health systems. So we got involved with that aspect of it. But as far as growing our business, it was a matter of us just calling our clients and telling them there were certain things they could do. For example, healthcare can do telemedicine, and they need people to know it exists. So let's make sure we tell everybody about your telemedicine. SVS can do prescriptions for eyewear online. Let's tell people you can do it, and let's start sending people their eyewear while they're locked up in their homes, and do contracts through e-commerce. They weren't previously e-commerce, but we brought them into that new world during the course of this. So those are the types of things we're doing.
That's really good. You mentioned like in the first 24 hours, you had like some pretty big shocks, right? And a lot of people have experienced that. How did that affect, or how did you take that and then take action without freaking out inside of your own company? Like, how did you lead your company through that, or yourself? Just talk about that a little bit.
Well, first, I didn't take action without freaking out. I freaked out.
Yeah.
And as we all are human. And for me, it's a faith thing. I literally go down to my quiet place and I talk to my God. That's what I do. Someone once asked me, how do you start an agency? Can you speak on it? And I said, I'll speak to your group. And they said, well, can you tell them how you did it, or what was the cause? And I said, well, do you want to know the real reason, or do you want me to talk politically correct? And they said, no, tell us the real reason. I said, I got up and I prayed every day. I don't know how you do this without having some kind of faith. So that's just me. But once I got past that point and I got to my center, I then started looking at the government programs. I started calling my team, seeing what we needed, seeing what we were missing. We did do some layoffs. We had staff that could not function in the current world because they were associated with business that went away. We had to let those people go. We gave them a long furlough because we wanted them to make it through this crisis. We also then looked into the government programs, which we applied, and we are getting our funding this week. So we're going to have 2.5 months worth of salaries covered by our government. So that brought some real encouragement as well. But it is a matter of just pulling together as a team and saying we're family, and we're going to get through this one way or another, and holding yourself together in the midst of it.
What do you see as far as opportunities in now where this shifts our entire population, how this maybe shifts your business? Like you talked about the next wave being owned, all the owned channels. How are you adjusting, or are you seeing where your business goes?
So in the future, the health system or the hospital will win in a particular market, may not even live in that market. It's going to be a hospital without an address. You're going to go to your phone and you're going to say, I'm going to meet with my doctor. It might be the Mayo Clinic, and they're going to give you a diagnosis over the phone and maybe even connect some device to you through your phone. As whoever gets on that bandwagon and has the owned media of what we call MyChart or Epic or some of these telehealth solutions, whoever owns that in a particular market will dominate that market, because it'll be your first call and it'll replace all the other hospitals. So in healthcare, it'll be that. In pizza, it's the pizza ordering app. When Domino's came out with the one-click order, it destroyed everyone else in the business. Domino's just rocked the world. We came back with Hungry Howie's at the time, brought them online into the one-click order, and they doubled and tripled their business within days of launching the technology. And they created this ongoing customer who spent 67% more often and 30% more on each ticket. So we found that by being in an owned media relationship with our customers, they spent more, they stayed more often, and they were less likely to go away.
And how about for your agency?
For us, our own media platform is we're starting to do a lot more of things like what you're doing, just webinars, content that's going out to our clients. We're creating our own studies. We have a study called Irrational Advocacy. It's on our website. And the engagement matrix is our model for tracking emotional engagement with customers. So we're tracking the universe of all brands and setting benchmarks by those brands. Apple, Amazon, some of these brands are beloved by the customers.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're saying, okay, if that's your 10 mark, how do our clients measure on that? And then we're going out to new clients and saying, we want to put you into our study. Now, no one wants to talk to an ad agency who wants to make an ad, but an ad agency who wants to inform their client about where they rank against Apple and their competitors in the marketplace, they want to talk to that agency. So we're using that as a way of kind of having that conversation.
That's really good. I love that.
What would you say, Dan, to the young solopreneurs, because we have a lot of those too?
Mm-hmm.
All of us have worked in kind of the small to medium size agency world, at least having some sort of staff. Finding more and more the trend is going to a solo model and an outsourcing of talent and resources and team building. If you were doing this all over again and you were starting from square one, what advice and what would you do?
A lot of the same things that I accidentally did when I started DBA. I didn't move out of the home office for a long time, didn't hire any hotshots for a long time. And I would say stay lean, find that your experienced partners, but keep them at arm's length. Let them have their own business. Let them manage what they're doing. Bring them in when you need them, and pay them a premium for the short windows you need them. Don't hire full-time people for part-time problems. You're going to end up in a serious issue. Learn how to be a salesman. The salesman is always the owner. You can't delegate that to someone else. As soon as you delegate that, my dad once told me, the salesman, he said, whoever owns the sale owns the business. So if you brought in a salesperson to run your business, you've given your business to that person. And there's a day where they're going to leave and take it with them.
How do you scale that?
Advice.
That's really good. Yeah. How do you
scale that?
How do you scale that? I'll let you know when I figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out how to scale beyond myself. I can typically bring in 5-10 million in a year, but I've had a hard time bringing more than that, and then keeping it's another deal.
Right.
So there's a certain amount of partnering you have to do. I'm building with partnerships with PR firms who have complementary services that we don't do. I partner with healthcare experience consultants. I partner with people who don't do specifically what we do, so that when they get business, they need us. When we get business, we need them. And so we build these relationships so that we all have a handshake, and you don't have to form a new entity or an LLC. Just have a handshake and then go to meetings together and present with cards, share your cards, and just give them that front that you're a unified group and act like you are. The client gets it.
Yeah, that's something that has been one of the scaling successes on our side too, is like we call our partner network or partner group. And it's a medium-sized group, one that we have direct relationships with and deep relationships with and personal relationships with, but they're complementary in our industry, and we work together, and there's power in that, and we just feed that.
Absolutely is.
Hey, Dan, I have a question for you. For agencies out there that are listening to this, we talked a lot about innovation, innovating our businesses and growth. And, some of this comes with a cost, right? So when we innovate, we have to take risk. We have to put ourselves out there and spend revenue actually going and building things that might be a capital investment that we might not see the results for another year or two come back to us. And for your agency, how much of approximately of your percentage of your revenue do you spend not specifically on sales, but specifically reinventing your company, or at least for more capital expense to move your company to the next wave?
Great question. Critical question. I nearly killed my company 3 times missing the point on this question. Mm-hmm. Innovation is very attractive. It draws us in. We want to be a part of the new thing. And so we end up getting distracted sometimes with it, and it can become your core, and there's no financial model for return on it. So if you put all your effort into innovation, you overinvest. It's like your stock portfolio. Do you put all of your portfolio in the high risk funds that have an opportunity for high return? You put a small amount. So think about it in the same way with your business. Your core should be the big, boring stuff you have to do every day, making the donuts. The stuff your clients are willing to pay you for, that you really are tired of doing. Keep that your 80%. Don't get bored of it. Keep doing it. Add a 20%. And we have this little illustration in the book. It's an 80-20 rule. There's this big wheel and there's this little wheel. New business is not a slice in your pie. It's a completely separate pie. It has to stay away from your core. It has to be a separate entity, a separate model, separate team, separate everything. But you want to make sure that your core stays central and focused in 80% of your business at all times.
That's good.
No, that's good. Yeah.
Look up the 80-20 innovation cycle. It's actually near the back of the book, and it's a really good explanation of how Disney did it and how Apple did it. They both had the same model. The Mac team was the little wheel, and the Apple II was driving the core of Apple at the time. Without Steve Wozniak keeping the company alive, Steve Jobs would not exist today.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he's passed away, but his business model would have failed.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Well, great.
How can people find out more about getting your book, what you're doing? Obviously, you write a lot. Can you give people connection points?
Yeah, you can go to danielbrian.com, DANIELBRIAN.com. And in there on the blog is the blog page where we constantly have new updates. And you can subscribe to that in LinkedIn. I have a lot of followers in LinkedIn. The other thing you can do is watch the book as a video. I have a presentation, Quicken Loans, where I'm live presenting the concept. It's a short overview. And then there's you can buy the book at Amazon.com, Surfing the Black Wave.
It's great. It's great. You guys have any closing thoughts or questions?
Oh boy, it's great to catch up with you again, Dan. And it's always you're always insightful and man, just a lot of good information. Great to see your face. Love you, brother. Hope your family's doing well. I don't know. Do you guys have any other questions, or do you have any questions for us, Dan? Or any last thoughts?
No, Brad, thanks for inviting me. For those who don't know, Brad is a genius. I never worked with a more incredible, talented individual than Brad Ayers. And our agency has been surviving and limping along ever since he left us. But if you've ever seen the movie Chronicles of Narnia and some of the things that he's been a part of, he was a launch partner in the matter of the media for that. And some of the work you've done over the years just blows my mind, Brad. So thanks for inviting me, and we enjoyed the time.
Yeah, appreciate
Absolutely.
that. Check it in the mail.
Daniel,
All right, guys. We'll see you next time then.
Yeah.
All right,
Great
guys.
meeting all you.
See you.